A video message from U.S. custody shocks the U.S. authorities as it threatens the country's security.
When the news first broke that El Chapo's son sent a message from U.S. custody, most people assumed it was another rumor. Then the video appeared. It was a message that seemed impossible and yet unmistakably real. Governments scrambled to verify the source, confirm the location. Even reporters who had covered the cartel for years said they had never seen anything like it.
It is almost impossible to record such video in custody.
Because this wasn't a threat. It was a declaration from a man the world had completely misjudged, and it proved he was not done. The silence before the message. News exploded across television and social media that Ovidio Guzman Lopez, one of El Chapo's sons, had pleaded guilty in a United States court and was now locked inside a federal facility whose location no one would confirm. For years, his capture had been the dream of U.S. authorities and the nightmare of the Sinaloa cartel. Many believed this was the end of a blood-soaked empire that had ruled Mexico's drug trade for decades. Reporters called it the final chapter of El Chapo's legacy. But they were wrong. What came next was not the end, but a warning. Within days, encrypted messages appeared on cartel channels hidden inside Telegram and Signal groups. Users spoke in code, passing the same phrase again and again. The message was recorded before capture. No one knew what it meant. Screenshots began spreading through forums used by dealers, mercenaries, and private investigators. The images showed something no one expected. They hinted that Ovidio had filmed a video shortly before U.S. agents took him into custody. The impact was immediate. Everyone understood the weight of anything Ovidio recorded. To understand why this video felt so dangerous, the world had to remember the hole El Chapo left behind. When he was locked inside ADX Florence, the super maximum security prison in Colorado, his sons inherited everything. They were 4 men raised in violence who saw their father's empire as a birthright. Each one was more ruthless, more educated, and more technologically skilled than their father had ever been. They did not hide in mountains or move drugs in trucks. They used encrypted servers, custom drones, and artificial intelligence to move chemicals and cash around the world without leaving a trace. The world thought El Chapo's capture ended the Sinaloa cartel. In truth, it only removed its face. As Ovidio vanished into U.S. custody, reports surfaced that 17 of his relatives were quietly taken into what officials called protective custody. In simple terms, it meant they were secretly moved to the United States, given new identities, and hidden from the public. The Witness Protection Program is meant to keep people safe when they cooperate with the government, but in this case, no one confirmed why they were taken or what they knew. There were no public court documents and no official statements. Their names just disappeared from Mexico's population database overnight. It looked like the government was hiding them, but no one could say from whom. Some believed they had agreed to testify against the cartel. Others whispered that they were not witnesses at all, but part of something bigger. What if they were not being protected, but being positioned for a mission? The timing was too perfect. The entire family disappeared during the same week that rumors of the recorded message began to spread online. Soon a screenshot leaked from a server based in California. It showed a video file titled mensajealmundo.mp4, meaning message to the world. The metadata suggested it had been created after a video was already in U.S. hands. That was impossible. Or at least it should have been. Experts said the file was fake, but law enforcement officers privately admitted the timestamp looked real. If true, it meant someone was sending a message from inside the United States on behalf of El Chapo's bloodline. The tone of the whispers changed. They no longer sounded like rumors. They sounded like a countdown. By the second week after Ovidio's plea, panic had spread through Culiacan and Mexico City. Civilians spoke of vehicles without plates circling neighborhoods. Reporters received anonymous emails warning them not to write about the Guzman family again. Government offices in Sinaloa were evacuated after bomb threats. No one knew if these acts were connected, but everyone believed they were. Something was coming. and no one knew from where. Before the world could understand what this message really meant, it had to remember where the true power began. It did not start with El Chapo. It started with the ghost who was never caught. The ghost behind the throne, El Mayo Zambada. For decades, people believed Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was the brain behind the Sinaloa cartel. They were wrong. The real architect was a man few outside the drug world ever saw or heard. His name was Ismael El Mayo Zambada. He was older, quieter, and far more dangerous. El Mayo was a former farmer from Sinaloa who rose through the drug trade in the 1970s and became one of Mexico's most powerful and secretive traffickers. He handled the cartel's money routes, cocaine shipments, and political contacts while letting El Chapo take the spotlight. While El Chapo built his fame through violence and headlines, El Mayo built an empire from the shadows. For nearly 50 years, he avoided capture, arrests, and even serious investigations. It was as if he did not exist. No clear photographs, no verified fingerprints, and no confirmed addresses were ever found. He became a legend whispered among traffickers, soldiers, and politicians alike. People said El Mayo had something no other drug lord possessed: complete invisibility. El Mayo was not a man who bragged about power. He controlled it. Through carefully coded messages and a vast network of relatives and loyal couriers, he managed operations across Mexico, the United States, and Central America. Government officials called him the ghost of the cartel. Every order that left his hands went through multiple layers of loyalists so no one could trace it back to him. He used family weddings, funerals, and local festivals to pass information. When one lieutenant fell, another relative quietly replaced him. Every move was calculated to hide his presence. Over time, investigators and many inside the cartel started to realize that El Mayo's immunity came from secret arrangements with powerful figures in the Mexican military and even U.S. intelligence. Former agents claimed that El Mayo had delivered information on rival cartels in exchange for being left alone. Some said he held blackmail material on politicians, generals, and even police commanders. Files were rumored to exist showing that El Mayo once helped the DEA track shipments from other cartels, all while continuing his own operations untouched. Nothing was ever proven, but too many agents quietly admitted the same thing. El Mayo was untouchable because someone at the highest level wanted him that way. As years passed, El Mayo's legend grew. Stories described him as a man who could walk through cities without guards because everyone was too afraid to look at him. He was said to move between mountain hideouts and luxury estates in the same week, always one step ahead of government drones and cartel informants. These drones were small aircraft used by the Mexican Army and U.S. forces to locate and track cartel leaders from the sky. They could scan vehicles, homes, and jungles with cameras and heat sensors. Yet El Mayo always seemed to disappear minutes before they arrived, as if he knew their flight paths in advance. Some even claimed he changed his appearance every few months, using surgery and fake passports to stay hidden. Whether these tales were true or not, they fed the myth of a man who outlived every other kingpin in Mexico. But in 2024, that myth shattered. El Mayo was finally captured, but not by the Army, not by the DEA, and not by any government task force. According to leaked court files and intercepted messages, one of El Chapo's own sons betrayed him. Joaquin Guzman Lopez, the quietest and most secretive of the brothers, allegedly handed El Mayo's location to U.S. authorities in exchange for his own protection. The news tore through Sinaloa like wildfire. Some soldiers within the cartel swore revenge, while others shifted loyalty overnight. The old alliances that had held the organization together for generations began to crack. It was during this chaos that something even more unsettling surfaced. A video recorded by Ovidio Guzman began circulating in private channels, and whatever he said in that recording became the single most feared piece of information inside the cartel. No one understood how it would reshape the war that was now coming, but everyone knew one thing. Once that video appeared, nothing inside the Sinaloa organization would ever be the same. A new kind of war was coming, not between rival cartels, but between brothers raised under the same empire. Princes of a blood empire. Meet the four sons who turned their father's cartel into something colder and far more lethal. Each brother is a different face of the same machine. Each one fills a role that keeps the empire alive. Ivan Archivaldo is the oldest active son. He behaves like a celebrity warlord. He has shown off wealth online in the past. He poses with armored trucks and rare watches. He wants the world to see him as untouchable. People close to him say he makes decisions to prove he is the king. Jesus Alfredo is the enforcer. He commands teams of sicarios. Sicarios means cartel hitmen. He handles security, kidnappings, and retaliation. He gives orders that decide who lives and who dies. He does not trust outsiders. He often does not trust insiders either. His world is made of loyalty tests, coded calls, and quick executions. He is the brother other men fear to disappoint. Ovidio, known as El Raton, the mouse, began as the quieter son. He moved money, managed drug production, and avoided the spotlight. That changed in October 2019 when Mexican soldiers captured him in the city of Culiacan. The operation was part of a joint effort with U.S. authorities to extradite him for fentanyl trafficking. But within minutes, hundreds of armed cartel fighters surrounded the city. They blocked roads with burning trucks, opened fire on police and soldiers, and took hostages. They even attacked military housing where families of officers lived. For hours, Culiacan turned into a war zone. Civilians hid in their homes as bullets tore through the streets. The cartel's demand was clear: release Ovidio or watch the city burn. The Mexican government, overwhelmed and outgunned, made a shocking decision. They released him to stop the bloodshed. Videos of cartel convoys celebrating his freedom spread online, and Ovidio became a symbol of humiliation for the state and power for the cartel. The incident proved that the government could not control Sinaloa, and Ovidio became a living reminder of that truth. 4 years later, in 2023, he was captured again after another violent clash and finally extradited to the United States. That second arrest ended his freedom, but began a much deeper war, the one his brothers would fight next. Joaquin Guzman Lopez is the quiet brother who handles the money. He rarely appears in public or on cartel videos. His job is to move cash, manage chemical suppliers, and run the business side of production. He organizes payments to transporters, pays off officials, and oversees the flow of drugs and profits. People inside the cartel say he is calm, careful, and always thinking several steps ahead. Many inside the organization believe Joaquin began secretly communicating with U.S. federal agents to protect himself as pressure on the cartel grew. This could have involved sharing information about rival traffickers, safe houses, or money routes in exchange for reduced charges or protection. No official record confirms this, but rumors inside Sinaloa claim that Joaquin cooperated quietly while pretending to remain loyal to his brothers. Those suspicions will later become central to the story. Together, these brothers made a cold choice. They moved away from classic cocaine routes as their main engine and built a synthetic drug empire. The key was fentanyl. Fentanyl is a lab-made opioid that is about 50 times stronger than heroin. It does not need large farms. It needs chemicals. These chemicals are called precursors. Many come from overseas suppliers, often through Chinese exporters and middlemen. The brothers set up small hidden labs. These labs are easy to move when police get close. A small shipment can create millions of doses. This means less risk at borders and more profit per kilogram than cocaine or heroin. Fentanyl changed the business completely because it is cheap to make, easy to move, and extremely strong. 1 kilogram can be diluted into hundreds of thousands of pills or bags of powder. The difference between a high and a fatal overdose is only a few milligrams. The Guzman brothers saw that and changed their approach. They stopped thinking like street traffickers and started operating like manufacturers. They tracked production, packaging, and distribution the same way a legal company tracks output and profit. When overdose deaths rose, they saw it as part of the business, not a warning. If one market became too dangerous, they shifted shipments to another. When a route was shut down, they opened new companies under false names and kept the trade moving. Inside the family, tension was growing. The brothers were not only fighting rivals or the police, they were beginning to suspect each other. Everyone already knew that one of them had spoken to U.S. agents, but no one knew exactly how much he had revealed or what deal he had made. Some inside the cartel claimed secret meetings had taken place long before Ovidio's capture. Others said promises of protection and lighter prison sentences had been offered if one brother helped the authorities. No one could prove anything, but the suspicion alone was enough to cause chaos. In their world, even a rumor could get someone killed. Each brother watched the others closely, afraid the next betrayal would come from within the family. That fear would soon turn into reality. What began as silent distrust would explode into open war, setting the stage for the bloodiest chapter in the history of the Sinaloa cartel. The betrayal that ignited a war. July 2024 began like any other hot summer in Sinaloa, but within days the entire state would be set on fire. It started with a secret meeting that was supposed to bring peace. Joaquin Guzman Lopez, the quiet brother known for handling money and negotiations, arranged it. He invited Ismael El Mayo Zambada to discuss a supposed truce between the Guzman family and Zambada's faction, a powerful network of veteran traffickers, logistics chiefs, and corrupt officials who had remained loyal to El Mayo since the 1980s, controlling routes through Baja California and the mountains of Durango. The meeting was to be held in the mountains outside Culiacan, with a local governor rumored to act as mediator. Everyone believed it was a cautious first step toward ending years of tension inside the Sinaloa cartel. But what no one knew was that the meeting itself was a setup. According to accounts that later surfaced, El Mayo arrived with only a few guards. Witnesses said the mood was calm at first. Then something went wrong. Within an hour, El Mayo's men noticed he was disoriented. He was given a drink, and soon after he collapsed. Gunfire erupted as his bodyguards tried to resist. El Mayo was loaded onto a private jet at a nearby airstrip and flown directly to Texas. When the plane landed, American federal agents were already waiting. U.S. authorities claimed he surrendered voluntarily. His family and loyalists said he was kidnapped and handed over. The betrayal sent shockwaves through Mexico's criminal underworld. El Mayo had been untouchable for nearly 50 years. To his followers, it was impossible to believe that a Guzman had done this, but evidence pointed directly to Joaquin. Leaked reports suggested that the United States knew about the operation in advance and may have promised Joaquin immunity in exchange for his cooperation. Mexican intelligence insiders claimed Washington had been pressuring him for months. His brother Ovidio was already in U.S. custody. Now it appeared Joaquin had chosen to save himself. The fallout was immediate. Within 48 hours, El Mayo's loyalists known as La Mayiza declared war on Los Chapitos, El Chapo's sons. Convoys of armed men poured into Sinaloa's cities. Gun battles broke out in Culiacan, Mazatlan, and Guamuchil. In just 3 months, 129 people were confirmed dead, and hundreds more went missing. Amid the chaos, another death fueled public suspicion. That same week, Hector Melesio Quinn Ojeda, a respected political figure and former director of the Autonomous University of Sinaloa, was shot dead at a gas station. Officials said it was a robbery. Locals were not convinced. Whispers spread that he had attended the supposed peace meeting and had learned something he was never meant to hear. No evidence ever proved that connection, but the timing was too close for comfort. The betrayal shattered the alliance that once held the Sinaloa cartel together. Joaquin's act did not only start a war, it planted distrust inside his own family. The brothers still fought on the same side, but the loyalty between them was no longer certain, and this new war would not be fought with bullets alone. The sons were about to weaponize technology itself. Drone war. The cartel learns modern warfare. The betrayal that tore the Sinaloa empire apart did not end with burned towns and gun battles. It pushed the war into a new stage that no one in Mexico was prepared for. After Joaquin handed over El Mayo and the Zambada faction erupted in rage, both sides began fighting as if nothing mattered anymore.
The brothers now needed an advantage because they feared the Zambada loyalists would try to recover their leader or destroy the brothers entirely. That fear pushed them to search for new tools, and they found one in the skies.
Mexican authorities had already discovered small drone workshops linked to cartels. These drones carried improvised explosives and were used in scattered attacks. But once the Civil War started, the technology changed almost overnight. Investigators and journalists noticed that the attacks became more precise, more coordinated, and far more frequent. People said the brothers began copying tactics used in Ukraine and the Middle East. These claims were not confirmed by officials, yet many believed them because the strikes suddenly looked like they were done by trained operators, not street criminals. The idea that the brothers hired foreign trainers spread quickly across Sinaloa, and no one could fully dismiss it. The first drones targeted Zambada hideouts and safe houses. Explosives dropped through roofs or onto vehicles moving at high speed. Videos showed entire compounds breaking apart as civilians watched from a distance. In response, people whispered that the Zambada faction was trying to build its own drone program. Whether this was true or not, fear began to spread through every town caught between the two sides. It no longer mattered who controlled which block. The sky had become the battlefield, and the machines did not miss. Families began leaving homes after hearing drones buzzing at night. Some schools closed because explosives fell too close to classrooms. Officials did not publish exact numbers, yet local reporters documented long lines of families escaping rural towns with whatever they could carry. They described the same terrifying moment. They said the air made a low hum before an explosion hit the ground. Security analysts said some drones carried upgraded cameras with night vision. A few anonymous sources claimed there were attempts to load simple recognition programs into them, though no proof was released. These reports spread because each new strike seemed more targeted than the last. Civilians felt trapped. They no longer feared gunmen on motorcycles. They feared the sound above their heads. It no longer looked like a cartel dispute. It looked like a new kind of terrorism shaped by technology and desperation. And while Mexico watched the skies, the United States believed it finally had control of the most dangerous sun. That belief shattered the moment Ovidio opened his mouth in court. The chilling video to the world. For months, the United States believed the war in Mexico was finally collapsing. Officials said the arrest and extradition of Ovidio Guzman Lopez meant the cartel had lost its strongest symbol. When he stepped into a Chicago courtroom and entered a guilty plea, reporters announced that the Sinaloa empire was finished. It felt like the final chapter. Cameras flashed, prosecutors smiled. Commentators said Ovidio had no choice but to surrender. That belief lasted only a few hours. The first alert appeared on an encrypted messaging app. It showed a single line that said a message had arrived. Within minutes, a video began spreading across dark web channels and private encrypted groups. Analysts later confirmed that the upload came from an unknown location inside the United States. No one understood how a man held inside a federal facility could speak to the outside world, but the video gave no time for questions. The footage opened in a large warehouse that looked abandoned. The only light came from a single lamp hanging over a wooden table. Several masked men stood behind it, completely still. In front of them was what looked like an altar covered with the flags of Mexico and the United States. A figure remained just outside the light with his face hidden. When he began to speak, the voice sounded distorted, but the rhythm of the words matched Ovidio's known recordings. The message was simple and terrifying. He said the world believed he was a prisoner, then added that the cartel was already inside the walls of the United States. The video then switched to drone footage flying over a small American border town in the middle of the night. A live timestamp appeared in the corner, showing the exact date and time the camera was recording. Cars were moving normally through the streets below, unaware of anything unusual. The drone's movement was steady and precise, the kind of control that only comes from someone with real training. That single sequence sent the message the cartel wanted. Their reach was no longer limited to Sinaloa. They were operating on U.S. soil, and they wanted everyone to know it. The video ended with an image of a burning emblem shaped like the mark El Chapo once used. A simple black circle with a scorpion in the center that appeared on his old shipments and coded messages. Under it were the words, "Operation Rebirth." Then everything went black. Within minutes, officials denied the video was real. They said it was edited. They said it was a fabrication. Digital forensic teams disagreed. They confirmed the original upload came from inside the United States and that none of the audio or visuals showed signs of artificial construction. Authorities tried to trace the source, but the file disappeared after 17 minutes and was replaced by a single sentence that said they had taken his father and now must watch their skies. That same night, the 17 relatives who had been placed under American protection disappeared from every federal tracking system. Their file histories suddenly stopped. There were no transfer records, no exit logs, and no signs they had been moved to another location. It was as if their identities were erased in a single moment. Experts who reviewed the sequence of events said this did not look like cooperation. Real cooperation would mean entering witness protection to provide intelligence, testify, or guide investigators through cartel operations. But the pattern did not match that. The timing suggested something different. The analysts believed the family entered witness protection to gain access to the system itself. The safe houses, transportation channels, restricted databases, and protected identities normally used for high-risk witnesses inside the United States. When they vanished, it looked less like they were being hidden and more like they used the system to disappear on their own terms. The rebirth. Within hours, U.S. and Mexican intelligence agencies formed a joint emergency task force to analyze the footage, the drones involved, and the message delivered at the end. Analysts agreed on the first point. This was not a traditional cartel operation. The drones showed coordinated flight paths, synchronized timing, and encrypted communication switches that had only been seen in limited military testing. That alone forced agencies to shift their assessment of Los Chapitos from a violent criminal group to a technologically evolving organization capable of offensive operations. Satellite teams were assigned to scan the areas surrounding the family's disappearance. No trace was found. Thermal recordings indicated the drones were not launched locally, suggesting the sons had developed remote deployment systems that bypass border surveillance. This changed the investigation overnight. If drones could be launched from hidden platforms inside Mexico and controlled from outside the region, then Los Chapitos had extended their reach without exposing their leaders. The message in the video was dissected next. Intelligence officers concluded it was not directed at the public. It was directed at rival factions and at the governments tracking them. The burning emblem was a signal that the brothers were reactivating networks loyal only to their father. Many of these networks had remained dormant for years, embedded inside transportation companies, communication hubs, and financial pipelines. Task Force analysts called this pattern Operation Rebirth, the likely name for an internal restructuring intended to rebuild the cartel under a unified chain of command. The most disturbing finding came from cybersecurity units. Hours after the video surfaced, coordinated digital probes were detected across border infrastructure. They were not breaches, but mapping attempts, targeting flight records, port schedules, and commercial drone registries. The timing matched the release of the video. Agencies concluded the sons were testing response speed, gauging how quickly each government could identify, track, and isolate new threats. By the end of the week, investigators understood that the disappearance was part of a larger strategy. It was not meant to cause panic. It was meant to test the system. The brothers were watching to see which agencies responded how fast they moved, and where the weaknesses were when the pressure hit without warning. Those reactions gave them a map of how U.S. security worked in real time. Officials later admitted privately that after seeing the pattern, they could no longer predict what the cartel was capable of doing next. What do you think about El Chapo's message? Comment down below.